Hi everyone, and it's been a while that we get back to this channel, Double Cross Anime. We have been busy doing a cinema version of the Triple Cross Cinema, and today we back. It's podcast number 146, and we back to talk some show from the 2000 to 2002.
Right.
Yep. So the
Uh,
way we do it is we assign each other like the show that we think is good and the other one haven't watched yet. So that show that I assign for Whooper is Boogiepop Phantom from 2000, and he assigned me Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2000, the first
no,
season,
it was
to-
Kogepan.
and Kogepan. It both two shows, right?
No,
I watched
the
I,
Ghost in the
I
Shell
watched them
one we
both.
agreed that we would. I mean, earlier we had a much larger and more grandiose
Yep.
plan to watch tons and tons of anime from the first 3 years of the 2000s.
Yep.
But
Then someone failed to make the time to watch any anime
right, I mean, I
or
watched
anything at
I
all.
watched a bunch, including some pretty good ones like Hidamari no Ki,
Yeah.
and
Have Have you finished that though?
yeah, I did actually just today. I finished it.
Wow, cool.
It's an interesting experience.
I think I up to like episode 9 of that show, and I still enjoy it so far.
It's amazing to me that it was released in the year 2000, but it took 18 years to get subtitled.
Yep.
Um,
I I don't think that is surprising as well at all.
I think
That,
yeah, I think it's surprising because it's an adaptation of a Osamu Tezuka manga,
yeah.
but it's I don't know. It's
It's so
set in the
obscure.
19th century,
Yeah.
and at that point, I think that people were looking for anime that was like a little bit more alternative. Around
Mm.
that time, like Fooly Cooly,
Yep.
um, Boogiepop Phantom.
Hajime no Ippo.
Well, that, that anime is about as far away as you can get from alternative. That's a straight ahead sports shonen, which is pretty good. I've also seen all of the original Hajime no Ippo series, and there's a bunch of like OVAs and continuation films and stuff,
Mm.
which are also pretty enjoyable.
Yep.
So that's another one from this 3 year time period that we're talking about here. But yeah, I Mario assigned Boogie Pop Phantom to me because I had never finished it. I had seen the first
Yep.
3 episodes, I think, a long time ago, and I just got put off
Yep.
by I don't know everything about it pretty much.
Yep.
But I powered through it, found some pretty interesting, found it to be pretty interesting on this watch through. And so Kogepan was the one that I assigned to him, which was I think a TV short, like with
Yep.
5 minute episodes from 2001 about a burned piece of bread who lives in a bakery and
I-
wants to be sold to a human because that's every piece of bread's dream, but
yeah.
he's never sold because he's burned.
Yeah, it's a breeze to watch. I think the whole length took like 40 minutes to watch.
Yeah,
And
it's 10 episodes, so I guess they're about 4 minutes each. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And if you
And
skip the OP and ED, both of
that's
which are
right.
pretty short,
And
then
that
you can zoom
including
through it even
OP.
faster.
That's right. Yeah. So
And then Ghost in the Shell, I think, was the one that we mutually agreed. I mean, I was kind of pushing for it,
yeah,
but that's the one that we both agreed that would kind of be representative of these 3 years
yeah.
a little bit.
Mhm.
So we've only seen the first gig, which
Yeah.
is the name for the first season, the first 26 episodes, which have a lot of standalone episodes, but there's also the Laughing Man case.
Yeah.
Did you end
That's
up finishing it?
I ended up finishing it a few days
Okay.
ago, and
I remember you mentioned to me while you were watching it that you preferred the more serialized elements about the Laughing Man more, which means that
yeah,
the episodes at near the end, which are all about the Laughing Man, were probably your
Yep.
favorites. I'm guessing.
yeah. Yep. That is correct. Which one that you want to talk first, so we can, going through them.
I don't know. Any
Yeah.
of them would be fine, I think.
All right. Let's. Yep. let's go with either Ghost in the Shell or Boogiepop Phantom.
Okay.
That,
Well, we can start with Ghost in the Shell, I guess.
yeah, let's do that. I think overall, after the first gig, I think this is a solid show, in a sense that I really enjoy like all the big stories. For more like individual story, like individual investigations, it is its own way feel a bit too short for me. I feel that they try to rush through the plot a bit too quickly, so that's why it is like the first episode that we watched before.
What do you mean?
So like you remember like we do the first impression of 2002 before.
Oh yeah,
And
when we watched 10 first episodes from the year 2002, we watched this
yep.
one as well.
Yeah, and we thought about that episode is that it has some interesting idea, but the way it resulting is rely on a lot of convenience.
Yeah, I'm beginning to remember that conversation a little bit now, and it's not. I don't know if it was convenience exactly, just that the case was wrapped up very simply.
Yeah.
All they have to do to solve it is like look at video footage of what happened.
Yep. And I had the same feeling with some of the episodes here, like some of the standalones one.
Do you have any examples?
Yeah, one of the example is the remember the kidnap case.
Kidnapping case.
Yeah,
is that episode 3 where
Nah, it's not.
like the android kidnaps the person who programmed it or something?
Yeah, or the first episode as well, like the one you mentioned, the 2, 3, and 4. I think it's a focus on this thing, and it happens in episode as well. But the one that I'm mentioning is the one later on where there was a string of kidnapping girls, and that involved the Russian spy. I don't remember.
If you have the episode number, I mean, I have like very brief 1 or 2 sentence thoughts on every single episode written up here.
Yeah.
Let me do Control F kidnap and see if that brings anything up. Nope. So
Right.
I don't know which one you're talking about exactly.
All right, that one there. Number 19. Episode 19.
Okay. So, episode 19, I remember there's a string of episodes in the lead up to like the Laughing Man stuff, which ends up taking up maybe the last 5 or 6
Yep.
episodes of the season. Episode 19 comes in the middle of a streak where a lot of the episodes are about Aramaki, the chief of Section 9. Do you remember those?
Yep.
I think episode 19 is one of those. Oh yes, the kidnapping one. That's where it's like the prime minister.
Yep.
His daughter gets kidnapped.
Yep.
And there's a woman who's driving a truck, and
Yep.
she's like ex-military or something, and she's had body modifications done to her.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one.
I actually do have a note here that says the detective work and the action scenes involved in like getting the daughter back are just kind of mediocre.
Yep. So it's I really like the opening scenes. The opening scene is where the girl one of the girl, like she waiting for someone. She talking. I think she was waiting for someone, and then it's just a moment of like we blink our eyes and she disappear. So I think that's a good hook. But then we find out that it's involved in the serial kidnappings, and they try to show them in the black market, and I was like, it didn't really explain why how they kidnap the girls to begin with.
Yeah, thinking back on that episode, I think there was more of an emphasis on kind of the political aspect of it.
Yep.
How Aramaki was positioning himself to rescue the prime minister's daughter and all the other girls so that he would have like more influence,
Yep.
perhaps in the government, because he's in a pretty dangerous position, as we see later, with Section 9 being an off the books sort of operation. If things don't go their way politically, then the government can just be like, well, time to throw these guys in a sack and dump them into the river. which is kind of what happens. I mean, they send a hit squad in after him in the later episodes. But there was more of a political focus in
Yep.
episode 19.
Yep.
But speaking of Aramaki episodes, I wonder what was your take on the one of the previous episodes, the one where they're in the wine cellar, or the do you remember this one? It's episode 17,
All right.
and Aramaki goes to visit like an old flame, like an old
Oh.
girlfriend maybe,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and
Yeah.
they have to escape. Like two
How?
crooks come in, two robbers,
All
and
right.
Aramaki is like they're trying to assassinate him. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, how do I take on that? Let's see.
Yeah. What did you think about that episode? Because I think that's one of the
Is it the one in London, right?
yes.
All right. That also had the same issue with like wrapping up too soon. I would have loved if they like they extended it like to like 40 minutes. I think that would be benefit much better. I like the leading up. So like for all Scott in the Shell episode, I always like the leading up. The way that they introduce the issues and the ways they investigate. I don't like the way they resolve all of this stuff. For the episodes, I think I I kind of I kind of like that. Uh, the story itself does make less sense, but it focus on like one core member of the cast. In this case, Aramaki, and I think that like at the end of the day, we know a little better of him. So yep, I like it.
Right. I will say that of what's interesting about second gig, the second season, is that
Yep.
the standalone episodes start to go into the backstories of way more characters. So
Right.
all the other members of Section 9, like the ones who are less important,
Yep.
who basically are just backup, or they're
Yep.
like specialists.
Yep.
There's the man, I can't remember all their names.
Ishikawa.
Yeah,
I remember.
Ishikawa, I think is he the guy who's always in that room with
Yep.
his head pressed up into that little hacking
That's the
thing
one.
where he dives into the internet? Yeah.
Yep.
He's a really cool character. I watched
Yep.
this dubbed, and his voice in the dub is just amazing. It's like really gruff, so you can tell that he's like been around the block and he's really seen it all, but there's also like an element of kind of like understanding and kindness in his voice as well. It's a really good performance.
Mhm.
But what's interesting about Second Gig is that characters like he and the sniper guy and pretty much everyone in Section 9,
Yep.
they all get their own standalone episodes, and they're a lot better than the standalone episodes in First Gig. Whereas the overarching plot in Season 2 is a little bit less strong than the
Yeah.
Laughing Man case. So it's a bit of a trade-off,
All right.
at least in my opinion. But
all right.
there is a character in the first season, First Gig, who gets several standalone episodes, which I
Yep.
think are awesome,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and that's Bato.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really like Bato's standalone episodes.
Yep. Because at first we think we only think he's at I like the like the big
The
man,
muscle?
the muscle man. Yeah, that's right. The muscle man who like who professional, but like doesn't really have any emotion. It's kind of hard to say, but like all of his standalone episode have been great. I agree with that.
There's the one where he poses as a boxer.
Yep. I like that
There's the
one.
one where there's an ex-military serial killer.
Oh, I don't
who's-
like that one.
Oh, you didn't like that one where the
I
guy
did
from
like-
South America or whatever
No.
comes to Japan and
Yep, I didn't like that one
oh, why not?
because the moment that Battle said that tell them that this is my job to like to handle this case.
Right.
I immediately know that he not gonna kill this guy. It's just too by the book. So yeah, I like the idea behind that.
Yeah, I can agree with the idea that it's like pretty cliched.
Yeah.
That he would spare his life,
Yep.
But that's the when you watch Standalone Complex, it's not as even though it delves into a much wider range of topics
Yep.
than the original manga. Well, maybe not the manga, but I haven't read
The,
the manga. But the
the
film,
movies. Yep.
the film certainly, those are pretty hyper focused on like the philosophy, and the I don't know, almost like the spirituality of a future in which
Yep.
people's brains and bodies are divorced from one another. But in this show, there's, I mean, you were talking earlier about how you like how cases are set up, but not necessarily how they're resolved.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The way that all these different topics,
Mm-hmm.
whether they be political, technological, are set up in Ghost in the Shell in Standalone Complex is really interesting
Yep. Yep. I
because
agree with
they're
that.
coming up with new cases all the time, and there's always some new application of this future technology
Mm-hmm.
for you to like consider as it's
Yep.
worked into one of these stories. But
That's,
they sometimes the resolution is too quick or is too simple. I
yep.
mean, that being said, I really do like episode 10, which is the one where he takes down the serial killer.
Right.
And what's interesting about it is, I mean, I do think that Bato's role in the episode is interesting because it reveals that he was also involved in this war, this
Yep.
world war,
Mm-hmm.
and that he was able to come out of it relatively unscathed compared to this guy. It gives you like a sense of the history of the world of Ghost in
Yeah.
the Shell.
Yeah. But the thing is, they still perform different duty back then. I think the serial killer still was assassins.
Yeah, well, he was brainwashed into the idea was that they were sending in these guys into like rural areas and killing the populations there in
Yeah.
like extremely vicious and brutal ways,
Yeah.
like melting their skin off and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it was the idea was to strike like fear into the hearts of their government so
Yeah.
that they would surrender.
Yeah.
And he got completely mentally destroyed in the process of carrying out those missions.
Yep.
I thought it was an interesting idea, and I liked the way that it was carried out. Was Bato sparing his life pretty obvious? Yeah, but it
Yeah.
does that is a pretty like political episode,
Yeah.
and there's it's not just political though. There's also an action focus, so I guess I like the balance between those two.
Yeah. And it actually brings me to the next point that the battle relationship with Tachikoma. I think
Yeah.
Tachikoma is like one of the best characters out of the first gig for me.
I completely agree, and you know what, you would be interested to find that that's like a minority opinion. A lot of people think that
Oh wow.
Tachikomas are annoying, which might have to do with the fact that their voices in the dub are like squeaky and high pitched. But I think
Yep.
they're appropriate.
Yep, they appropriate, and even in the shop, the voice is more like childlike.
Right. Yeah, I think that's exactly
What they're aiming
what they were
for.
going for was
Yeah.
childlike because they're like blank slates.
And
Um,
like all the implication in regard to how Tachikuma evolve, actually pretty interesting. And I at one point I think it's gonna be like a main plot coming to like the last act of the first gig. But turn out that they are just as spotters, and they
right.
die heroically. My
Right.
God.
Yeah. I mean, they do play it's not a major role, but they do play an important role in the takedown of like that gigantic tank
Yep.
in the forest in that
Yep.
that one scene. I really do love Bato's relationship with them and the fact that he leaves behind the natural oil that they like at his
Yep.
his apartment, which he's abandoned because he's afraid of
Yep.
staying in one place for too long.
Yep.
They all congregate there because they all remember him, and it's interesting that like in an earlier episode, each of them thought that they were the one who had a special relationship with him.
Yep. Yep.
Just all the ideas at play in that story
Yep.
about memory and artificial memory and connections between man and machine, and whether
Yep.
they could be the same as connections between man and man or machine and machine. All of
And-
that like runs through the series until they come back to his apartment, and you realize that man and like relationships between man and machine can persist over time and lead them
Yep.
to where he was, like lead them
It,
to search for him.
even like even compared to other characters, other human characters out of the series, Tachikoma like become more emotional and more human in that. I think that's the point as well. Like we heard a lot of them, like saying what they really think, and like when they really attach to something, they do it. I really, yep. Like at the end of the day, Mokoto like sit down of this involvement at first, but then she also said that like they might have uh the goals,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
completely agree with that. I think they bring a pretty good point there.
Yeah. They kind of turn out to have ghosts,
Yeah.
if not literally, then at least functionally.
Yep.
And you got the scenes, like there's a couple scenes of them crying, uh, like
Mm-hmm.
the oil leaking out of the little
So
their
nice.
eye, I guess you would call it, the
Yep.
camera.
Yep.
Um, that's pretty. You could say that it's like on the nose,
Yep.
a little bit too clear a visual representation of the idea that they're human too.
Yep.
Um, but it really, I think it works out,
Yep.
especially because the scene where, as you said, like the major has been doubting whether, and she's even the one who decommissions them. She sends them all back to the lab because
Yep.
she's afraid about how they're going to like continue to evolve. Because if they don't have ghosts,
Yep.
then it's too unpredictable what they'll do, or perhaps because they might have the potential to develop ghosts, they're too
Yep.
unpredictable.
Yep.
But the way that sentiment is reversed in the scene where they're, I think it's just before they've gone into the woods, and the
Yep.
major's voice like rings out in their heads.
Yep.
Dude, that gives me chills. Uh, the fact that because it's not just a cool moment where she's like in hiding, but she's communicating with the Tachikoma so that they can save Bato.
Yep.
Um, it's it's representative of the fact that she's been convinced based on their behavior that they're worth having as allies,
Yep.
and as friends. So it's when her voice, like especially because when her voice plays through their CPUs and you hear it kind of in their heads, so to speak, there's
Yep.
a shot of the like a female statue,
Mm-hmm.
uh, maybe even the statue of an angel. I can't remember. Outside of, I guess it's her house. That was her
Yep.
house, right?
That was her house. Yep.
Yeah. Like there's a shot of her as kind of the savior. The in that shot of the statue as her voice is playing.
Yep.
It's it's the combination of like the fact that she's coming to understand that there are people as well, and that she's hidden, you can't see her, but it's as though the shot of the statue makes her like a larger than life presence. It's just a great, man, I really love that episode, and that scene in the forest as well, where they're like willing to give their lives, because that's like the ultimate, that's thought of as the ultimate human sacrifice, like the most um I don't know, the most compassionate thing you can do, or like the most human thing you can do, is to
Yep.
die for someone else, and
Yeah.
that's what the Tachikomas do.
Yeah. I
Um,
agree. I it still
really
make
good
no
stuff.
Yeah, it still make no sense for me though. That why Battle would go back to the major house.
Because he had to
Is
get
that
the watch.
it's just so stupid, the idea.
You think so?
I think so. He know that like all the houses are being uh tagged, and he come there anyway, and it's no
Right.
wonder that he got chased up, and he nearly got killed by them.
Right. Well, was the watch the only reason why he went back to the house? I think, didn't he go there for another reason, like to find
I
some sort of clue about her whereabouts?
I doubt it. I don't. It's vague. Let's just say
Well,
it's
I
vague.
seem to remember him walking around in her
Yep.
house. I mean, I keep hesitating to call it a house because it's like a weird, super futuristic
Yep.
place where the windows are all like slanted, and
Yep. I
it
think it's
looks
like I think it's like one of the safe house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah. Yeah, there's there's shots of him in there kind of like investigating, kind of poking around a little bit. So I don't, it's what he ends up getting out of the scene is the watch.
yeah.
But I think he went there for a reason beyond just that.
All right,
Um,
and all right. Correct me if I'm wrong, and just fill me in more of the details. I remember that all these members of the Section 9, when they disband, have been have been captured, and some of them even killed off screen. I I I remember like there are scene where it's like one of the members were chasing down uh by this soldier, and they gunned him down. What happened at the end? So is it like just a plot, just a plot where they try to capture them, but instead they want to put them in one place?
you mean
Or
as far as the government, like what they want to do to Section
yeah,
9, or
yeah, they will want to kill off Section 9.
yeah,
No, right?
they're trying to kill him. Yeah,
All
but I
right.
don't think you see any of them die on screen.
Yeah, no, we don't. We actually don't. But
Yeah.
that's why they reappear at the end. But there's a gap, and I can't really connect all the dots.
Yeah, it's interesting what the show does because it does imply that several of them, many of them, have died, and then it cuts to episode 26, which opens with Togusa,
Yep,
who has been isolated from Section 9 as a result of his involvement in the Laughing Man case and the injury he sustains.
yep,
That's really it's interesting that they cut to him because it leaves you in suspense the same way that Togusa is, and he's been like cooped up for months out of the limelight.
yep. Go on, go on.
And he goes full like taxi driver,
Yep,
and he almost kills Yakushima.
yep,
That I didn't really believe. I was like, I mean, if you dedicate more time to that story, like give him portions of several episodes in a row where he's isolated and kind of going crazy and trying to investigate from his own home but getting nowhere. Like you build up the fact that he is like his frustration levels rising as he's away from the rest of Section 9 and kind of cloistered.
yep,
Then maybe you can get away with him being Travis Bickle and trying to kill this guy.
yep.
But I didn't. It kind of it kind of made me chuckle, like the fact that he pulls a gun on the guy and Bato stops him at the last minute.
Yep.
But they cut to his perspective so that you're left in suspense about what happened to Section 9. But in reality, all of them like fake their own deaths or something, and then the gang gets back together at the end because you got to do season 2. I mean, you can't just kill everybody off. We need 26 more episodes.
Yep. I that also my main issue with the shows. All the issue that I have with the show is that they have a very good setup and they completely fail at how to resolve it. And this one is like one of the prime examples. Like we don't even know how they escape. We don't even know it was a scheme. Like at the very beginning that they try to they intentionally get caught and then they get away somehow, or we
Yeah,
don't know that, but like it's very conveniently that all of them are are back together.
well, I think if the show had set it up as being a scheme and showed us a conversation between all the members of Section 9, like, okay, I'm going to go here, and then, people are going to chase me, but I'm going to fake my own death, and we're all going to reunite later. Don't you
Yeah.
think that would have been way more underwhelming?
I agree with you on that, but it kind of like a misdirection, and it's
Yeah.
they don't do a very good job at that either.
I mean, when I saw this season the first time I saw it, I was
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, they're all still alive! This is crazy." My second watch through, which was maybe a couple months ago, I do remember feeling a little bit like, "Well, this is this is pretty neat that all of them are back together and they all fake their own deaths so flawlessly." And that they're all laughing about it as well in the final episode when
Yep.
Tokusa comes back to the new Section 9 headquarters and
Yep.
Ishikawa is like mocking Bato for the way that he screamed Motoko when her head gets blown off. But that's just one of her replacement bodies. Like in the last few episodes, the show definitely takes advantage of the fact that these guys are basically immortal because they have
multiple bodies.
Yeah, they have multiple bodies. They can transfer their mind between them. They can even, like, the Major can even create a backup of her brain.
Yeah. I know.
So she can.
So
she can get her head blown off in a climactic scene. But just kidding. That was one of her duplicate spare bodies.
Yeah. Actually, I remember. Is that the robot android from the movies, like the younger version of herself? Because I remember I saw that somewhere before.
Oh yeah. You do see a younger version of her in the film, I think.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, after the puppet master inhabits her body.
Yep. That one. Yep. In the films. Yep.
Yeah. But it's not this. It's not the same in Standalone Complex. Standalone Complex kind of repurposes all the elements of Ghost in the Shell to tell its own stories.
And talking about Makoto and Bato on that scene where they go up to the plane and Makoto get her head blown off.
Yeah.
It actually was very bad the way they do it. Like the way they show that, because like just like the scene before, they was in the safe house. There is no reason for them to go to to escape. There was no reason for them to, and we don't have any like kind of setup. Like if there was a scene between Makoto and Bato saying that we now need to escape, that would explain the situation. But then we just have like the scene where they got caught by the military, that they tried to escape, and then she had her head blown off, and I was like, it just so bad.
Why does it not make sense that they're trying to escape the country?
It not make sense though, because it's not in their characters that they would do that.
But that's what that's what Aramaki told them to do, right? Is to they should all like get out, and then they'll reconvene.
Don't
later.
Die. They need to survive.
Right. So wouldn't the best way to do that to get out of Japan?
I would say that from the scene previously, just the scene right before that, is that Makoto's play is just right in front of the where the session night was. So yeah, I think their philosophy has some way been being in the place where you least suspect it, so like in the crowded into So I don't think it fit their character at all that they would escape. If it's been others member who doing that, I would have believed it. Not for Makoto and Bato, and not for that scenes. I think it's just very poorly constructed.
I don't really understand your argument. Really, I don't.
Yeah.
They were told to survive, so that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah. I just don't think that scene have any credible to me. And but we have been talking about the Laughing Man. So let's talk about him. How do you like the character in general?
It's the Laughing Man case is really intricate. They give you all the details, but it's hard to remember them. So since I've seen this like 2 months ago, I'm trying to think back on it. I like the Laughing Man case. It's my favorite thing about First Gig. Whereas in Second Gig, my favorite thing is the backstories of all the members of Section 9, which make them way more, interesting. The Laughing Man case is the thing I like most about season 1.
I agree.
And what's interesting about it is that the Laughing Man is like he's not intimidating at all. Not like Bato, or not like any of the mech suits that characters wear. Especially like the one in the later episodes where the Major like pounds down on. Do you remember that scene where there's that shootout at the hotel where the bad guys have like that thermoptic camo that makes them invisible? and then anyway, there's that scene where the Major's like punching that guy in the huge tank and like making its chest cave in. I think she's no, it's a gun. Does she? Yes,
Yep.
it's that huge gun. She's one
Yep.
of her arms is like not working, so she hoists the gun up over her
Yep.
shoulder, and
Yep.
dude, that
Yep.
scene is so badass. It's
Yeah, I
awesome.
know. I know. And I hate that captain, the other one. So it's so satisfying the way that Makoto do that, and this guy would just open up the hatch. Can't breathe.
Right, because she's like caving in its chest with all those,
Yep.
with all the gunfire.
Yep.
Anyway, it's the Laughing Man doesn't use technology like that. He's not a big, strong guy, and he doesn't have big old tanks or bipedal gun weapons or
Yep.
anything like that.
Yep.
So it's interesting that he is able to like manipulate people and investigate. What is it that he investigates exactly? It's like medical malpractice, right?
Yep.
And in fact, it
Let's
has
see.
to do with vaccines, which
Yep.
is interesting to be thinking about in 2022.
Yep.
I don't know if you read the series a certain way, you could even say that it's a commentary on the sort of thing that might happen today.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I remember now. It's cyberbrain sclerosis.
Yep.
It's
Oh
like
my.
this rare disease that affects people's cyber brains.
Yep.
Um,
And then there was a guy who created that vaccine, but it's not like officially recognized by the government.
right, and the reason they didn't recognize it was for profit,
Yep.
because they wanted a different version of the vaccine to hit the market.
Yep.
And he uncovers this whole thing. It's interesting how the Laughing Man case is brought to attention
Yep.
in the series as well, because the series kind of approaches it from a sideways perspective. You don't understand. The Laughing Man is the only one who understands everything about it from the beginning.
Hmm.
Togusa is the one in Section 9 who starts to dig around, and he does
Yep.
it as early as episode 4, actually.
Yep.
That's the one where he's like getting photos, I think, from a former cop friend of his,
Oh, right, right,
and
right.
he
Yep.
realizes that the photos are like
They-
from
there was no
somebody's
camera.
point of view.
Yep. Yep.
That leads into the Laughing Man case. The next Laughing Man episode, I think, is the one where he goes into that facility
Yep.
where there's a bunch of kids who like with cyberbrain autism,
Yep.
basically. And he poses as a caretaker there in order to dig into the case a little bit more. So I like the fact that the Laughing Man case is approached from a different angle, and you don't understand all the pieces of it until much later in the series.
Yep.
It's really interesting to watch and to kind of work out yourself, especially in the later episodes, because you're getting a bunch of information and having to slot it into the correct places in order to understand the whole thing. But it doesn't leave you with a strong impression, I don't think, of how exactly everything's tied together, because I definitely can't for the life of me remember all the details of it so long after having watched it.
All right. I like the Laughing Man case. I like the character himself, and I think it fit very well with like the concept of even the films before. That like he a super hacker. He doesn't really do that for purpose, and that like that's where the name of the series come from. It's standalone complex. So like that there are copycats. There are other who use his name uh to do something for their own gain. So and he himself isn't like the original Laughing Man. So there is a question of like originality and like people who carrying in that. So I think that idea is fascinating. If a bit a bit undercooked. They just they just present that, but they haven't really really tackle that ideas. But like all in all, I really think that it's a good guy, and this is a good conclusion to that series as well. if it stopped there, like in the first gig, I would be happy for the show.
Well, it doesn't. It
Yeah, it
goes on.
doesn't. It goes on.
There's a second gig, and then there's a movie after that.
Right.
And there are also movie adaptations of each of the seasons. So there's a Laughing Man movie,
Right.
which cuts out a bunch of the standalone stuff and just tells the story of the Laughing Man case.
Yep.
But even in doing that, like the movie's not long enough to tell the whole story of the Laughing Man, so even some of that gets cut out as well.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm remembering now that the major, like in that scene where the Laughing Man is talking to Serrano, of Serrano Genomics, who's like being kept under house arrest because the government doesn't want anyone to have access to him because he might tell them the truth.
Yep. House arrest. Yep.
Yeah.
It's like protection. House protection.
Yeah. They
Yep.
claim to be protecting him, but really they're
Yep.
protecting their own interests by keeping him
Yep.
locked up.
Yep.
But they get him out because the Laughing Man hacks all of the cameras.
Yep.
And even people's eyes. The fact that you can hack people's eyes is a ridiculous level of cheatery.
Yep.
Like in terms of writing a story, you can just be like, oh well, he didn't see him because his eyes, his
Yep.
eyes got hacked into. It's like a get out of jail free card. The same way that people can have multiple bodies and stuff.
Yeah, and actually, Batu learned that as well.
Right. You hacked my eyes, you bastard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he actually do that trick after all.
Yes. Doesn't he do that at the very end, kind of when he stops Togusa?
No. So no, that before that. That was when he went to Major house, and there was a guy who like put him to the corner and shoot him.
That's right.
He hacked his eyes so that he appear dead.
Right. Another fake out regarding whether someone is dead or alive. Yeah.
That's right. And I don't even know how he could do that. It just
Yeah.
superpower.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It's fine though.
Yeah, it's fine. I accept it.
Yeah. Well, Bato has a cool voice in the dub, so when he reveals the fact that he's actually behind him and then he kills the guy, or knocks him out, whatever the case may be, his voice actor says, "Sorry, pal, had to hack your eyes." He just has such a cool delivery when he says it. Makes everything fine.
Yeah.
What I'm remembering now is that the scene where the Laughing Man is in the coffee shop with Serrano and they're like debating the ethics of what Serrano did in the past. You find out that it was actually the Major posing as the Laughing Man.
Yep.
I forgot about that. So even on my second watch through, when she revealed herself in the alleyway outside the coffee shop, she revealed herself to Bato, I think. And I was like, oh my God, my mind just got blown. But the interesting thing about it is that in that moment, it's completely practical. Like when people talk about practical effects versus special effects. She wasn't hacking Serrano in order to make him think that she was the Laughing Man. She just dressed up in that gigantic coat where the neck kind of swallows up your whole head. You put the hat on top. So she tricked him like analog. Which is really interesting.
Do you remember the episodes where there are some leftover from one unit? I think like there was like 3 members who tried to kill the Major and Amaraki at the same times. I think it's happened later on in.
It's not the unit with the guy in the gigantic tank suit.
Yeah,
is it?
It is.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that just earlier, like the scene where the Major gets her revenge. Yes, I remember those. Yeah. Those are. Wait, what?
Yeah, it's the one happened afterward, right?
The one that happens afterwards.
Yeah, so there's like 3. So that happened where where the Major want to replace her with her new bodies, and there was a doctor.
There's like a doctor, like a really seductive doctor, who and then the Laughing Man comes in and saves her, right?
Yep. And at the same time, Aramaki dealing with his brother.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
How do you like that episodes?
I remember enjoying that episode a lot because of the way that it cut back and forth between the two plots.
Yep, yep,
I thought that it kept the tension going in both. I mean, I think the scene or the plot line with the major wanting to do a brain transfer is way more interesting.
yep. I
Just
agree
in
with that.
terms of the concept behind it, like the Aramaki wanting to track down his brother, and I
Yep.
think his brother is actually a character, like a real character in season 2, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
He's not
Right.
just a red herring that people use to lure him down to the wharf where they can like kill
Yep.
him.
Mm.
Because his brother does play into like the mythology of Standalone Complex as on the whole.
Yep.
But yeah, I remember my main takeaway from that episode was that the way that it cut back and forth between the two plots, even though one plot was stronger than the other, it really made both of them feel like a unit, and it kept the sense of tension, consistent throughout.
I agree with that completely, and I think this is where one of these only time that I actually are afraid for Makoto to like to actually lose because she was immobile at the time.
Right. Yeah. That really does. There's like an element of horror to
Yep,
that.
yep, yep.
That's pretty. That's pretty interesting. And the
Yeah,
fact that the doctor is so sexy, for some reason, makes it more frightening. I don't know. I don't know why. That's
I
something like extremely primal, probably that you
now
can't really analyze.
all right now that we are in 2021, I would say that
It's
that is the
2022, man.
oh sorry 2022. I would say that that character, that doctor, is straight out from Akudama Drive. Remember that
Yeah, I
character?
remember the doctor from Akudama Drive. Yeah, and she has the same glasses.
Yeah,
Um,
the same, like deadly smile as well.
yeah, kind of. I mean, maybe there's. I'm willing to bet that that's just a larger trope, like the sexy doctor.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the sexy nurse, especially. That's probably dating back like centuries.
yeah,
People's fascination with like a woman or a man who has like the power to cure you, but also to kill you. Like they
yeah,
hold your life in their hands. There's something like, I don't know,
yeah,
erotic
yeah,
about that,
yeah,
and like dangerous about it.
yeah.
So I would say that that's probably why there's some similarity between those two characters, because they're pulling from like a human fascination that's existed for so long.
Yeah.
But that's it. I hadn't thought about that connection. That's interesting.
And I actually like the fact that Aramaki asked the Laughing Man, Aoi, to join his team, and he
Right. Yeah.
flatly
What do you think
refused
about the final scene on the whole?
the final scenes.
Like in the library where they
All
have
right,
that big Aramaki and Motoko
I
have that big conversation with the Laughing Man.
all right. I think it's appropriate that that it would go for more like philosophical questions, and the fact that all of the Laughing Men want to do is just want to collect on the physical copy. I think fit his character as well. So as a whole, I like the ideas. I feel that Aramaki, like just track in there is a bit a bit off, but like it's I just roll with it.
Well, I think there's something interesting about the fact that they're able to track him there physically so easily, because he is by the end of the series just interested in like physical media,
Yep,
and cataloging like only what's real and can be proven, not
yep,
just what's on the internet. Because the whole Laughing Man plot has to do with, you know,
the media.
digital
Yep,
digital data,
yep,
stuff people being hacked,
and
the truth being withheld, like
yeah, yep,
ledgers and documents and stuff being altered, and that's all done digitally.
yep, and
So at the end, he's fixated on what's physical, and so Aramaki being able to track him there physically kind of makes sense,
yep,
because he's less concerned. Laughing Man now is less concerned with being invisible digitally, and he's more concerned with being present physically. So the fact that they find him physically in this library so easily kind of fits.
yep, and he actually wanted them to come as well. So
Oh,
yeah,
did he?
yeah, he did say that. He
Okay.
did say like you took a long time to come here, Makoto.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's fit, and also it's about like how the media can manipulate it all the data and sensors, like all these important details. So yeah, I think it's fit to the story, and yep, I like the idea behind the left female cases.
Yeah, me too. But I wish I could talk more about it, but I really have forgotten so many of the details. I remember the
But
broad strokes, but
yeah,
and I have my little notes here on every episode, but it's
mm,
just it's a lot, man.
that's a lot.
Oh, dude, we didn't talk about episode. We've already been on this for 50 minutes now.
Right,
Uh,
just go on, but we haven't
we
we
didn't
haven't
talk about
talked about
episode 12, which I think is one of the best episodes of the series. That's it's like a two-part episode. The first one is the one where the
12.
Tachikoma escapes Section 9 and helps
Oh,
a little
right,
girl find her dog's grave,
right,
which has to do with the evolution of the Tachikoma's conscious, uh,
right.
basically.
Th-
Um, that's I don't know if that's the first time that you hear the Tachikoma express fascination with death,
Yep,
because
yep,
they do that multiple times throughout the series, and that's really interesting to me that a character that's kind of represents childhood in a
yep,
way would be so fascinated with death.
yep,
That's a real thing. Like I have had because I work with children, I've had kids express like an extreme fascination with death. In fact, I've even heard children say that they want to die,
yep,
but not from a place of despair or
yep.
sadness or anything. They're just intensely
Curious.
Yes,
Yep,
yes. Kids will kids have told me I want to die. They've told me that like with a smile on their
yep,
face,
yep, yep,
because to them it's like a big nap in
yep,
their mind. Um, so the fact that the Tachikoma was so intrigued by the idea that her dog had died and that she was sad over it was really interesting to me. But the second half of that episode, probably the one that I imagine that you will remember more clearly, and that's the one where on their way, on their way to the grave, they go through kind of like a little ramshackle marketplace,
mm-hmm.
and they find
Ah,
this box. It's like a hard drive or something,
yep,
and Makoto like plugs into it, and it's like really surreal and kind of impressionistic.
yep,
There's like a movie theater inside of it,
yep,
and the guy who created the movie also created this box so people would be locked in there forever.
yep,
It was it was a bizarre kind of trippy episode, like a commentary on
yep,
kind of surrendering your physical body
yep,
and surrendering your life in order to experience life through other people's eyes.
yep.
It's really interesting stuff. I think that might be the most thought-provoking episode of the whole
Right.
series.
All right. I like this episode as well. I don't regard it as highly as you, but yep. I also see like there are some really fascinating about um like escaping from the real world. It almost feel like the Matrix in episode 13. The way that they don't want to go back to the real world, and they just survive the movies all over again.
Right.
And yeah,
Kind of like us.
yeah, kind of like us. I would prefer life like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm the episode. See, it doesn't like come out and condemn that mentality exactly. It's not a criticism of it. It just kind of observes it,
yeah,
like that there are people who will just live life vicariously, whether it be through art, like film, or something else. Like by extension, it's probably commenting on anybody who would kind of leave the real world behind.
yeah, yeah,
Because it's set in the world of Ghost in the Shell, it can tell that sort of story literally. Like there can be a box where when you hook yourself into it via that cord in the back of your neck that they use over and over in the series,
yeah,
you can surrender yourself to that sort of life. But science fiction like this is, even though it creates its own world, usually science fiction is commenting on real world ideas or attitudes or practices.
yeah,
So I think the commentary here is on people who will kind of turn a blind eye to what's happening in the real world and
yeah,
focus on what's like what beautiful dreams people have conjured up for them to lose themselves in.
yeah,
There's death tied into it as well, like the idea that if
right,
you if you get lost in that box, like if you go too far in and you don't have somebody to pull you back out like Motoko does, you've died. Like you've disappeared into that box and you're no longer alive. Not at least not in the real world, but you are inside. Like you inside of that box, you still have a life, as shallow as it may appear to be to people outside, and as rich and rewarding as it may appear to be to people inside. It's just a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Episode.
How do you think of the visual representation of the films?
In that episode?
No, all of that, all of the whole shows, like how the CG and stuff.
In general, I think it looks all right, but it does have some issues that a lot of series from this time period do have, which is that they were just figuring out digital technology. The 3D CG, like for the Tachikomas, it looks great.
Yep.
I mean, this is probably the best example of 3D CG in TV anime, at least from this time period. The Tachikomas, and the way that like the thermoptic camo works is really cool as well.
Yep.
But there something about the line work, because in general the line work of the series is pretty like solid. It's pretty thick. So the way that the characters move feels a little bit stilted sometimes.
Yep.
In general, I would say that the series is quite well animated. However, the way that the characters are depicted, like many of them are bulky, and they're kind of drawn solidly as well. Sometimes it makes them feel less like they're like really strong and powerful characters moving swiftly, and it'll feel a little bit more like they're kind of lumbering or kind of moving clumsily. So I think the series falters sometimes. In general, I think it's pretty well made and it looks pretty nice, especially for the time period. But it does have sometimes the characters don't exactly blend into their environment. Sometimes they don't exactly move the way that characters who have this level of physical strength would move. However, there are also episodes like the boxing episode where the boxing match in that is like, I don't know, it's some of the best boxing animation I've seen. In general.
Agree.
I think the series steps up when it knows that it's got a crucial moment to depict, like the Major firing that gun into the chest of the big tank, or Bato boxing, or the scene in the forest where the Tachikomas are trying to save Bato's life. Anytime you got a scene like that, I think this show steps up.
I would say that for the time, and I think this is like one of the very first like major anime series that heavily integrate CG, 3D CG into their work, because I can't recall like any earlier series that do that.
Probably Fully Cooley.
All right, Fully Cooley look pretty cool now.
Yeah, it does. There is a lot of 3D CG in Fully Cooley, but it's the show is so stylish that it's hard to notice the seams, I guess.
This one is more noticeable, and I would say like some of the effect kind of dated by today's standard, but it's like we were talking about like 20 years later on. And,
the series is 20 years old now. Yeah, wow.
Jeez, yeah. And for me, like if for the time, it's actually pretty well done. Well animated, like you say. It's just the OP is bad, but apart from that,
but the song is killer.
The song is killer.
Origa's voice is so beautiful. And she does the I don't know which song I prefer. What?
Is it in Russian?
I can't remember.
Right.
I think Origa might be Russian or Icelandic.
Wow.
I don't know. But I don't know which of the two songs I prefer, this OP or the second gig OP, but the visuals of the second gig OP are like super cool. They're not ridiculous pre-Toy Story levels of CG animation. It's the standard 2D mixed with like 3D Tachikomas and vehicles and stuff. Oh yeah, the 3D vehicles in the show do not look great.
No. Yep. Yep.
But there, that's. I mean, even 3D vehicles in anime in 2022 don't look very good.
That's right.
So
I wonder why they still, like struggling to make it look great. I think the American do CG much better.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, the common theory, I'm sure the one that everyone has, is that because there's much more of a traditional animation focus in Japan, that they were late adapters of 3D CG technology. But I mean, that's probably true to an extent, but they also did pick it up, as early as the 90s.
Yep.
So
Hmm.
they're just, I don't know, man. They just de-emphasize it, relatively speaking.
Yeah. Well.
Not that good at it.
Yeah. No.
It'll change over time. I don't know how much more time it's going to take, but
Yep.
they'll figure it out.
Did you watch the second gig a few months ago as well?
No, I didn't. I stopped after first gig
All right.
because I had to watch so much more stuff
Yep.
from these 3 years,
Yep.
2000 and 2002. So I
Um.
figured I should better put the rest of Ghost in the Shell on hold until I watch
Yep.
it, more of that.
Yep. Because I definitely interested to watching the second season now.
Yeah, it's
And
the second season. The second season's good.
right.
The
And
standalone cases are a lot better, and the overarching plot. I'd be interesting to see. I'd be interested to see what you think of it because it
yep.
is. I mean, as complex as the Laughing Man case can be,
Yep.
the individual 11 case
Yep.
in Second Gig is far more complex. It's like way more political, involving multiple nations.
Wow.
Um, you have to take some. You have to like take notes,
Yep.
or else just Wikipedia everything in order to figure out what's happening. Um, so I don't
Talking
know. I
about
don't know how
taking
I'll
note.
feel about it when I rewatch it. Maybe I'll get a clearer picture of it, and maybe I won't. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, multinational. That's an interesting idea because I don't think we go multinational in the first season at all.
Well, there is the scene that the episode we were talking about before, where
In
Bato,
UK. Yeah.
where he has to track down the serial killer who's still carrying out his mission from World War III or
That's
whatever
right.
conflict it was. And the
Yep.
individual 11 case does it kind of goes back and like in the process of constructing its overarching story, it will reference past geopolitical events,
Yep.
like wars between countries and stuff like that. So
I
it gets into the mythology of Ghost in the Shell as well. And then you got Aramaki's brother who shows up and does stuff.
Yep.
It's way more complicated.
Yeah. I would love that. I would love all that. All like this mythology of like the previous history of Good in the Shell universe and like new characters that will be important to the whole universe. Is
I think there's also a new member of Section 9. If I
right.
remember correctly, Section 9 gets, in addition to beefing up the parts for a lot of the background players in Section 9,
Yep.
I think there's one new character, if I'm remembering right. I'm not sure that I am.
All right. Cool. All right.
Oh, we did
Talking.
an hour, huh?
Yep. I think we should move on to the next show. So talking about taking notes, there is a show that worth taking note for. Let's go for that show.
That show is Boogiepop Phantom.
Yep.
Um,
So
man,
I forced I forced people to watch the whole thing, and it's only 12 episodes, and I think it's like his third try, right?
uh, I think only second.
All right, second try.
My first time I tried to watch this series, I got 3 episodes in,
Yeah,
and then I stopped. And
yeah,
I had a similar experience this time because I mean, episode 3 was my least favorite.
cool. Yeah,
That's episode 3 is the one with Mizusu,
uh-huh.
who's like, she's the girl who was friends with somebody named Panadu,
Yep,
or she had a friend who she had nicknamed Panadu.
yep,
And Panadu dies, I think, and so Mizusu takes on her persona.
yep,
But then at the end of the episode, Mizusu is killed by a cop, completely anticlimactically. There's just a cop who shows up and kills her, and it seems like it's a complete dead end. And I wasn't really interested in Mizusu or Panadu
yep,
at all. So but also in episode 3 there was an appearance from the Manticore, which was like its clearest appearance so far, and so you're like, oh yes, we got to find out who the Manticore is and what its relationship is to Boogiepop.
Yep.
But all of that is completely thrown away, at least temporarily, in this third episode. And it's like, oh, well, Mizusu was just killed by a cop. You find out later, of course, that the cop, you know, belongs to the secret organization
Yep.
of like supernatural creatures that are infesting the city. But at the time, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, I don't. This episode was a complete dead end, waste of time. It only superficially connected backwards to episode 2 because it had Jonauchi, the guy who saw bugs on people's skin and would eat them. Basically, what he was doing was eating people's memories, I think. So I hated episode 3, but I kept going, and I was taking notes, although they're not in a great format for me to like scroll through now as we're talking. And as I kept going, I was able to appreciate more and more how many moving parts there were, how many references there were to previous and future episodes within each individual episode, and that characters would recur and the show would kind of loop back on itself. We were talking earlier about like a bulletin board where you would put like photos of people and connect them with string, like you would in a David Fincher crime film. I think that's what you really need in order to understand this show completely. So I don't think I got everything there was to get, but I do have an appreciation for the show now that I didn't before.
All right. So I think we talked about it before the podcast, but I want to give it a bit of the background on the Boogiepop Phantom, the whole things. So I would say that Boogiepop Phantom is like one of the very first popular light novels, because it's dated back into like the 90s.
1998, I think, is when the first one came out.
Well, right, 1998, and it become like massive popular that it had like the live action adaptation before this anime series, and the live action adaptation is Boogiepop and others depicting the event where the Pillar of Light happens.
That's the live action one?
That's the live action one. I think.
Okay. Is the Pillar of Light a consistent event throughout all Boogiepop media?
Yep. So that I think is the main event of Boogiepop Phantom. I think it's all started from there. Let me say that's the beginning of everything, and there is a as I talked to as what we discussed before, there is a 2009 reboot of Boogiepop Phantom. I think it's like Boogiepop
Never Laughs.
Never Laugh. Yeah, that's
Boogiepop
right.
wa Warawanai. Yeah, it was 2019, not 2009.
Sorry, 2019, and I watched the whole thing. I enjoyed it. The first episode, which I think if you watch the first full episode of that one before watching this 2000 version, that would serve you, like that would do you more service, because it explains the whole event of why they caused the Pillar of Light. That would like affect all the stories of all the small story of this one.
What does cause the Pillar of Light? Because that's not explained in this series at all. The Pillar of Light is just kind of treated as like a foundational event.
Yep.
You don't understand who makes it happen exactly or for what purpose.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I on top of my memory, I don't remember exactly. It's involved like a lot of characters, and that's like one of the characters who like become evil, and you should watch it again. I don't even remember too. Sorry, guys. So
I mean, that's to be expected when you're talking about Boogiepop, for people to say I don't remember. That's just the way it is.
It's like 20 plus characters, and that's not even saying like all these mythical creators like Boogiepop, Manticore, and all these others. Like
do you remember Echoes?
Echoes, that's right, Echo as well. No, I don't.
Echoes factors into Boogiepop Phantom as well, but it's extremely vague, as are a lot of things in this series.
Yeah.
you kind of just have things explained to you, and you're like you have to just roll with it because there is once you get to a certain point in the series, there is a lot of direct explanation and exposition
Yep.
that is delivered by Boogiepop and Boogiepop Phantom, who are two different entities.
Yep.
They just will show up and explain what's happening to a character. They'll talk about like the electromagnetic field that's keeping the city imprisoned, so that people, I don't know, so that like people can appear as holograms and or oh yeah, I don't worry, I took care of that with my cocoons that I trapped some children in the underground, underneath this city. I made some cocoons and there are kids in there. That'll counteract the power of such and such a creature. It's really difficult to track
Yeah.
what's happening and for what purpose. So it's important, I guess, that there are characters who will just say, "Oh, well, here's what's going on," but then at the same time, you wonder why.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I
Yes.
don't think the series is very good about providing
They don't.
concrete reasons for why things happen, but that
Yep.
seems to be the point, I think.
Yep. 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 Yep.
If not the point of the story, then at least the point of like its construction or the way that the story is told.
Yep.
It's supposed to be kind of puzzling and mysterious.
Yep.
And I can appreciate that to a certain degree.
Yep.
But when things are like purposely obscured, not just in terms of like what's blocking them from what's not said or what's being blocked from the frame or whatever, but when everything is so dark is what I'm driving at here. This
Yep.
show is really dark, like visibly dark.
Yep. Yep.
And it's a problem. Like it's a legitimate grievance that I have with this series is that obviously they wanted it to look dark, because there's supposed to be it's like an oppressive environment. People don't feel as though they're living fulfilling lives in this city, and it's supposed to feel this way because of what the Pillar of Light does to the city and all the like the malevolent forces that it creates. But I have to see what's going on. Like if you're gonna make your series so confusing, and tell it out of order, you should at least make things clear, visibly.
All right.
But they don't even do that.
All right. I wouldn't say dark. I would say that it muted to the point that it's become plain and like really hard to see sometimes.
I mean, it's not just muted.
Yeah.
If it were muted, it would, you'd be able to see what was happening.
Yeah. All
But
right.
everything would just be like the colors would be a little bit less intense. I mean, I think it seems to me watching this that it was shot on film. I'm not 100% sure about that because series around this time, there are some that can trick you, like whether they're digital or animated on cells. But
Yeah.
I think this one was animated on cells, just based on the kind of the texture of the characters, like I don't know, their skin tone, or I think paint. What I'm saying is, I think I can detect that the characters were colored with paint rather than like digital color.
Right.
And so I think that because this was animated on cells and shot on film, I think that the room in which the animation camera was located, I think they lit that room poorly on purpose when they were photographing the cells,
Yep.
because it seems that in every single shot, like the center of the frame is lit a little bit better, and when you get to the outer corners,
Yep.
like the corners of every single frame are a little bit darker.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So I think the way that they lit the room where this series was shot was, it's clearly a very purposeful choice, and one that I just,
Don't like it at all.
no, I don't. It distracts from what's happening, and it makes it more difficult to understand. And the show's already difficult to understand.
Yep. Yep. I agree with you, and I think what I appreciate the most out of the series is the very one that people that that push push away viewer from engaging it. It's the structure. I really like the Finnish structure here. It feel like like we're watching a puzzle, a piece of puzzle, and we try to fit everything together. And it's out of it doesn't follow any character for too long, so we try to fit that piece in and try to figure out like how they relevant into the big pictures. I really love that, and I think it's kind of reflect the nature of the Boogiepop Phantom light novels as well, because I think it was supposed to be that this way.
Yeah, that's my understanding of them as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's told. It's not in chronological order,
yeah,
but it is like if you watch it front to back, it's more chronological than it lets on. Like it's usually meetings between like high schoolers, like victims of the victims of the TOA organization or victims of the Pillar of Light in general. It's their meetings and stuff that will happen in like episode 2, and then episode 9, for example, will cut back to it and follow the other character. Like if two characters meet up, character A and character B meet up in episode 2, and then they go their separate ways. We follow character A for the rest of the time. Then 7 episodes later, it'll loop back around, and then we'll follow what character B did after that. That's where most of the achronological storytelling happens. But in terms of how, like, what Boogiepop and Boogiepop Phantom get up to in this city, which I think it's Tokyo, isn't it?
So I think it's Tokyo.
Yeah, because in episode 12,
Oh, they said a name.
it's what? Oh, unnamed city.
Yeah, a named city.
Okay. In episode 12, it opens up in Tokyo because Suema and Toka are in that hotel room because they've been staying overnight before their exams. They have big entrance exams coming up, and the exams are being held not in Tokyo, but like in Ochanomizu, which is close to Tokyo. So they want to stay in Tokyo so that they can catch a train to Ochanomizu really easily in the morning when their test is. And as all that is happening, I thought there was a reference to some of the events of the actual series having taken place in Tokyo as well, but I could have been misdirected somehow. Would not surprise me. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the doings of Boogiepop and Boogiepop Phantom in this series. It's true that they're told out of order, but the fact that the series starts to clear itself up a little bit, like in episodes 10 and 11, when Boogiepop is kind of laying out what's been happening with Poom Poom and Manaka, the butterfly girl.
Yeah.
Their stories are kind of wrapped up towards the end, which makes sense because they were the characters behind a lot of the events of the story. So it's true that not everything is told in order, but at the same time, the series does progress towards its resolution in a pretty straight ahead way. It's not as though we see the butterfly girl like die in episode 4. She dies in episode 11. And it's not as though the identity of Poom Poom is revealed in like the second episode. But we do actually learn who Poom Poom is, I think, in episode 7. Do you remember Poom Poom?
All right, just go on. Just go on.
You didn't rewatch this in preparation for this podcast, huh?
I did read a whole bunch of storylines for each episodes.
Okay.
Poom
Poom is the guy who dresses up like the Pied Piper, kind of like a jester. Do you remember him?
Yeah. I do.
He's
remember.
a kid.
I do recall
So
him now.
Manaka, the butterfly girl, who like can show people, like she can pull memories out of the air, and she learns about humanity as a result of being able to see people's memories. She can also show people's memories to them, like make them re-experience memories of their life. She creates Poom Poom, the Pied Piper guy, by like pulling him out of the repressed memories of Mamoru, who is
Mm-hmm.
Mamoru is, how do I explain who he is? He's one of the two Oikawa siblings, and he has a sister named Sayoko. And episode that happens in episode 7. In every single episode, there's like a high schooler or a pair of high schoolers who are like struggling with what they want to do with their lives, or they're like social outcasts, or there's always some element of like asocial or antisocial behavior in a lot of these episodes. And Mamoru like has a really poor relationship with his father, I think is his deal.
Mm-hmm.
And he feels, man, I remember I watched this episode yesterday and I remember so
What's
much
it?
about it, but just trying to explain it is really difficult. Like
Yep.
that's the thing with this series. It's difficult to put everything into words and arrange it
Yep.
properly. Anyway, what larger point was I driving at? It was that the Butterfly Girl and Poom Poom. Oh, I
Yep.
was talking about Poom Poom. Anyway, he's one of the major antagonists of the series. He represents like people's lost childhoods, everything that people leave behind in the transition from childhood to adulthood. He's a
Yep.
little Pied Piper guy. He hands out the red balloons to characters, and when they
Yep.
accept them, like their childhood self is ripped out of their body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some of the characters, after having that happen to them, they're just kind of reduced to shells of themselves. And one girl who wants to be a musician but is told like she's not good enough, when she returns to her home after Poom Poom takes her childhood self out of her, and she returns to her home as this shell, and there's a really horrifying image of her like slumped down over a piano with blood everywhere,
Yep.
as though the sight of the piano and the realization that because she's lost her childhood dream, like literally Poom Poom has pulled it out of her to be a musician, she has nothing left. So when she sees the piano and realizes that she can't be what she's wanted to be all along, she just killed herself. Anyway, I don't know how to stop talking. I like how to finish up this train of thought that I'm on, because the whole show feeds into itself over and over.
Yep.
That's how it's
Yep.
structured.
And
Anyway, it's interesting.
Yep.
The way that's laid out is interesting. It's
I
thought provoking.
I would say that like you said like you said on your really long rant that they all happen in the same city. They all happen like like with several characters. Well, most of them high schoolers. But they address some of the same themes in regard to like the isolation, the social outcast, the anxiety of of these people, and
Yep.
they end up choosing darker method to cope with that. So I think it's still pretty much address the same thing, and so it's like uh thematically cohesive.
I don't
Do you
know.
think?
I think you can say that it's thematically cohesive, but I would say it's more like atmospherically cohesive.
Right,
Like
right.
the atmosphere of the show is really bleak, moody, kind of oppressive.
Yeah.
And the fact that all these characters are struggling with similar things, the fact that they're struggling with similar things, but they're doing it in isolation from one another, and the story keeps them segregated,
Yep.
just by virtue of how the story is told. It's not as though all these characters who are all going to the same school.
Right.
I can't remember what it's called. Something Academy, Sayoko Academy, or something.
Yep.
They're all going to the same school. Perhaps they're in different grades or something, but it keeps the characters segregated so that it's not like the similarities between their circumstances that weigh most heavily on you as the viewer. It's the fact that they're all portrayed in a similar way. So I think it's really the tone of the series that's most consistent,
Yep.
rather than whatever messaging it has.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And that's all
Do
right.
Do you think it ends up at the end?
Does it add up at the end? Well,
The whole thing?
not really. By the time I got to the end, I could tell that there was a grand design that was informing how the whole show was laid out and what the overarching story was.
Yep.
But the question of who Boogiepop Phantom was not satisfactorily resolved, I don't
Yep.
think. We know that Boogiepop is an alter ego of Toka.
Mm-hmm.
And Toka is first introduced in, is it episode 5?
Yep.
I think. Maybe even earlier when she's talking to Suema.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure. Scrolling up through my notes here, but it's the way I have them written is really not
Happy.
conducive to me just like immediately latching onto the thing I want to see, the thing I'm trying to find. But yeah, Toka is introduced at the latest in episode 5. And
Yep.
we know Boogiepop is her alter ego, and that happened when the Pillar of Light occurred. So my speculation is that the Pillar of Light, even though it seems to begin on Earth and make its way upward into the clouds,
Yep.
I mean, that's how lightning happens, right? When you like slow down lightning, you see that it
Yep.
actually starts at the ground and travels up
Yep.
into the cloud.
This one actually the opposite.
What do you mean?
This one is actually the pillar of light is caused by someone who I think who is killed, and then he just transformed into the pillar of light.
Someone transforms into the Pillar of Light?
Yeah, they got killed, and yeah, that's I think yeah, we can get a much more sense of this show by watching the double length of the first episodes of 2019 version again. I think
Well,
some of these facts will make more sense.
maybe. But I mean, they are in separate continuities. Boogiepop Phantom is a spin-off.
Yeah, but it started from there. It all started from that event. So like all the characters like the Boogiepop, or like all the strange event that they keep mentioning in the series. Like did happen in that realities.
Okay. Well, I know that the Pillar of Light caused some people to come back to life. And there was one guy who touched it or was struck by it, and he was blown into pieces, but then he reformed. And I think that was the Manticore, or at the very least, it was a high school student who the Manticore would later come to possess.
Mm-hmm.
Its name starts with an S. I can't remember what
All right.
it is.
I actually think, if I recall correctly, it's the Manticore who straight it into pieces and become a pillar of light, and then in this series he come back to life.
So that high school student was
Yeah.
already the Manticore.
Yeah. Yes.
So he was just
All right. Don't quote me on this, but now what I recall from the first 2 episodes of the event.
Man, we're not talking about the 2019
All right.
series.
All right. The event that caused the pillar of light was that the Manticore manifest that guy, and he killed a bunch of people. So that's why Boogiepop come there to kill him, and
Right.
that was what happened.
So what's the Pillar of Light?
The pillar of light is the way that Boogiepop killed a Manticore, and
Okay.
he basically explode.
Yeah, but he gets reformed
Yeah.
because
that.
of some electromagnetic field
Yeah.
taking place throughout the whole city. Like there's multiple parts in Boogiepop Phantom where like some device will be like a little miniature EMP or something will blow up, and it'll cause like the power in the city to go out, or the power in a particular part of the city to just dim for a second, and that causes a character to like fade from existence because they were only sustained in reality by an electromagnetic field. They were just like essentially an illusion or like a hologram. There are multiple points where that happens, and there's also a lot of dialogue about that happening. In fact, one of the characters, I think it might be Nagi's father, is like some sort of scientist or philosopher or something, and there are quotes from him throughout the series. In one episode in particular, it might be episode 8, because that's kind of the Nagi episode, where there are quotes from her dad about like the nature of reality and that this could all just be one gigantic delusion that's perpetuated by a field, some sort of magnetic field that we're all wrapped up in. So I think that sort of like I don't know, it's like pseudo-scientific philosophy is kind of embedded in the whole series. Especially in episode, is it 11 or 12? I think it's episode 11, where many of the victims of the Manticore, like they experience a moment in their, like they experience a memory where they see themselves dying or killing someone else or being killed by somebody else. It's as though they're reliving that memory from a distance, and then all of a sudden it'll fade out as though it were a hologram, and they'll be okay, as though like there's been some sort of dimensional transference, and this new reality that Boogiepop brought into being by turning off the electricity or something is replacing the reality where they died. It's very bizarre. Episode 11 is like a mind fuck. It's you watch it, you don't understand exactly what's happening, like if reality is being rewritten, or whether that just exists in the mind of Monica, the butterfly girl, and her memories are being replaced, or that's why I say like the concepts of the series conceptually is not really that consistent, but tonally it is. Because there's just a gigantic air of mystery surrounding everything, and that's kind of its own reward in a way. Like you can watch the show and not really get it, the same way you can watch Sunny Boy and not really get it, because it's really beyond you as the viewer. Only the person who wrote it really understands what their intentions were, and even those intentions might just end up being like a bunch of bullshit if they try to explain it to you. It's really the way that the show is like laid out that gives it its power.
I would say that because of that though, that each viewing will give us like some more fresher perspective, and even like you will learn something that not intentionally like taught by the creators. Like I would say I would say that with Sunny Boys, I don't know if that would be appropriate here. But I think that's
you would say what would happen in Sunny Boy and wouldn't be appropriate here.
That I would learn something that like something entirely new on each viewing, and so
that wasn't necessarily intended by the writer.
By the writer.
I think that's right, because like if you watching Sunny Boy or watching this series Boogiepop Phantom, I got the sense that like all the pieces, you watch it enough, you study it enough, all the pieces will slot together. Because it does seem to be very meticulously constructed. But the thing is, like all you have to do is buy into the idea that whatever electromagnetic field is working its magic in this city is attracting like monsters to it and is altering people's perceptions of it, stuff like that. So all you have to do is buy into the idea that there's some magic electricity that's making the city a supernatural, kooky, weird place. That's really all the investment that you have to do in order to make the bulletin board and tie the string between all the photos for Boogiepop Phantom. Sunny Boy is like Sunny Boy is completely impressionistic when you get down to it. It's
more
like
free fall.
It's less pseudoscientific, although there's like quantum mechanics and stuff factoring into Sunny Boy, like the way that they escape in episode 11. They go up into space, they like exceed the speed of light in order to get back to their original reality or some version of it. So there's definitely some like pseudoscience or quantum science or whatever you want to call it in Sunny Boy as well. But at the same time, like that show is way less of a puzzle and more something that you feel. I think it's like far more emotional. At least, I mean, it was for me. There are characters in that show whose fates are like, it's completely chaotic and random what happens to them. In Sunny Boy, in Boogiepop Phantom, it seems like everything will fit together if you really make it fit together.
Yep.
If you're dedicated to it, you can make it happen. So I much prefer, I think, things not being like it not being quite such a puzzle.
Yep.
If you draw comparisons between this show, Boogiepop, and Serial Experiments Lane, for
Yep.
example,
Yep.
Lane is something where it feels like no matter how far you go, you will never reach the truth of it.
Yep.
Because there's something almost like there's something beyond human about it. That's the way I feel about Sunny Boy as well. There's something,
Is it?
yeah, there's
Sorry,
something.
is it that another description of pretenses?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. Depends on who you are, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Lane is pretentious. I think Sunny Boy is pretentious. I think Evangelion is pretentious.
Yep.
And most people use pretentious as simply as an insult. Something that's like too deep for you. It's there's no real meaning to it, et cetera, et cetera. I think I kind of use the word pretentious like just something that is, man, I don't know.
They
It's
try
just
to. All right.
it's just too grand. It's like it's trying to dig at something that you can't get to the bottom of as a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Boogiepop doesn't seem pretentious to me.
Hmm.
Perhaps people might comment on it saying
Yep.
that the way that the story is told
Yep.
is somewhat pretentious. Like, why don't you just tell it in order?
Yep.
They might have that attitude about it. But the story itself, I don't think is really getting at anything that really touches you. At least it doesn't for me. I don't have no emotion comes over me when I watch Boogiepop Phantom, like
Yep.
whatsoever.
Hmm.
I'm just like, yes, so that happened, and this character was in episode 4, but then their grandmother killed them in episode 11, and then so on and so forth.
All right. One last question before we move on to Kogepan. How do you think the last episodes, like they change of tone, they change of, even the color work, fit into the rest of the shows?
Well, it just makes sense because at that point, Manaka, who is ultimately the antagonist, I think,
Yep.
Monica has been taken care of. She's died. Excuse me. And the Manticore has left the city. He's in Tokyo now.
Yep.
Posing as the detective. The detective is somebody that we meet in the journalist rather, excuse me, with the detective's memories. So the detective that Nagi talks to in episode 2, I want to say, in a flashback, his memories are somehow in the brain of the journalist who we meet in episode 8, which is Nagi's episode. And so the Manticore is possessing him and making him think that he's someone else. It's
Wow.
like, anyway, the point is that he's out of the city now, and he's in Tokyo. He's out of the Boogiepop Phantom city.
Yep.
And Monica no longer has like a stranglehold over a bunch of people. So it makes sense for everything to be brighter because the tone of the series is brighter.
Yep.
Because the villains have been dispatched, basically.
Yep. All right.
I brought up Sunny Boy for a reason, and that was, I think that, Shingo Natsume, he's the director of the 2019 Boogiepop Never Laughs,
Yep.
which you referenced earlier.
Yep.
Shingo Natsume, also the director of Sunny Boy, and I think that there is a specific episode in Boogiepop Phantom that influenced him in the making of Sunny Boy, and that's episode 7.
Right.
I was talking earlier about Mamoru
Uh-huh.
and Sayoko, the two siblings. Mamoru is the guy from whose memories Poom Poom is created by
Yeah.
Monica.
Yeah.
Anyway, to say nothing of Poom Poom and Monica and the overarching story, forget about them for a second.
Yeah.
You know how some high schoolers are given like supernatural abilities because of the Pillar of Light?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
Jonauchi can see bugs on people, which represent
Yep.
their terrible memories, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Mamoru and Sayoko are really interesting because it seems that Mamoru has been given the ability, like, to telekinetically destroy people that he touches.
Yep. Yep.
But in reality, it's Sayoko who has the ability to destroy, and Mamoru only has the ability to decide who will be destroyed. So there's a misdirection about who has this supernatural power. Like when someone attacks Mamoru, for example, you learn towards the end of episode 7 that he's not the one actually doing the killing. Sayoko has the power to kill, but Mamoru is the one who, in his thoughts of self-defense, like channels her energy and tells her who to kill unconsciously.
Yep.
And that reminds me very much of Sonny Boy and the way that over the course of that show, they think that it's Nagara who made them jump to a different universe.
Yep.
And then they think that like maybe Mizuho did it, and then it was Mizuho's cats. But then you learn specifically that each of her cats has a different power.
Yep. That's right.
Like the gradual narrowing of who has what supernatural abilities. I think this specific episode 7 of Boogiepop Phantom, directly influenced Shingo Natsume in the making of Sonny Boy. And the reason I can say that with more confidence than normal is because he actually directed a Boogiepop adaptation. So it's clear that he's into it, the franchise. And Boogiepop Phantom happening 21 years before Sonny Boy came out. That means that he probably would have been a young man when he first saw Boogiepop Phantom. You know, so also the fact that everyone in Boogiepop Phantom is depressed as hell also reminds me of Sonny Boy.
Yep.
Because everyone in Sonny Boy is either depressed or angry or feels like something is missing from their life.
Yep.
You know, so I see Sonny Boy as a natural extension of Boogiepop Phantom, in a way. Like without Boogiepop Phantom, I don't think we get Sonny Boy in the evolution of Shingo Natsume as an artist.
Yeah.
I was like really intrigued when I watched that episode, to make that discovery, you know. And that maybe it's not coincidental, but that was around the time when I started to pay a lot more attention to Boogiepop Phantom, because I was like, oh, let's see exactly like what's tied up at the core of the show.
Yep.
But you know, watching it, I found that there wasn't that much at the core of it. Like, I don't know, philosophically, there's a lot of dialogue about like society and it being kind of a crushing influence on people.
Yep.
But I didn't really get anything human from it.
Yep.
Didn't make me feel a particular way. It just kind of intrigued me in its storytelling and in its construction.
Yep. I think this is like the main criticism for the show anyway. So people don't feel like any attachment to all the characters, and you know it's bleak as hell, and I can understand that.
Yeah, well, I mean, even the way that it tells the story is going to prevent people from getting too involved with the characters. Yeah. Because you see a character, and then there's, you know, in episode, let's say 3, there's no guarantee that they're going to show up in episode 4. In fact, they probably won't. Yeah.
Normally they won't. It's just like the core characters that keep coming back.
Right. Yeah, but even they won't necessarily, like Nagi shows up in most episodes, but not all of them. Sometimes when she shows up, it's just for like a split second. Like there's literally a scene in one of these episodes, I can't remember which one it was. Episode 6. That's the episode where we learn about Shizue, the girl who has like a terrible relationship with her mother. She was next door neighbors with Mayumi, the woman who gives birth to Manaka. And she loses her memory when she does because of the experiments performed on her at the hospital, which are a whole other thing that I don't quite understand. But anyway, Nagi shows up for just literally a split second in episode 6. There's a cutaway in a particular scene to like a rapid fire, like subliminal series of shots of Nagi and the Manticore and Boogiepop Phantom all engaged in combat. If I had to guess, I would say that those frames were probably from another episode, like a future episode, indicating that what happened in, let's say, for example, episode 8 was actually occurring at the same time as what was happening in episode 6. But it's literally like, if you blink, you will miss it. So the reason I started talking about that is because even the main characters, like Nagi or Boogiepop, they don't show up in every
Yep.
episode, and even in the episodes where they do show up, sometimes it's just for a split second.
Yep.
Hard to really care about them as human beings, like people with souls, you know.
Mhm.
And a lot of the characters don't have souls, like they're aliens or they're monsters uh, or they're manticores, you know.
Yeah, they're even less than Tachikuma from
Right, exactly.
Ghost in the Shell.
Well put.
All right, let's get to Kogepan.
All right.
It's a really cute show. It's
Yeah, it is.
I enjoyed it all the way through, but I would say that some episodes fall flat for me, and I really enjoyed the episode where it depict other bread.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, my two favorite episodes are 4 and 10, which have the widest casts.
Yep.
They're the ones where you like episode 4 in particular is the one where all of his friends are being introduced and the narrator.
Yep.
I love the narrator's voice. He just has kind of a very wise tone, but also kind of bemused. Like he thinks that everything is kind of cute and funny.
Yep.
So he's introducing all of Kogepan's friends with all their different fillings and head shapes and colors and flavors.
Yep.
And then he gets to Square Pun.
Yep.
And he just says, "Square?" Like he's so
Yep.
square, and the frame is just his head, a square. And then the camera zooms out or he backs up, and then you see that he's Square Pun.
Yep.
But the way the narrator introduces him is so like he's confused or even frightened.
Yep.
That's
All
a
right.
lot of fun. I do like all the different kinds of breads. Yeah.
Yeah, I my favorite one is episode 3, and a few later on like episodes 8, 7, 8, 9. There are a string of like really good episodes in there. My favorite one is the one that they introduced to like the bunch of Kogepan, the really nice bread.
That's episode 9, I think.
That's it. That's in episode 3 as well.
Oh, Pretty
No,
Pan
Yeah,
is in episode 3.
Kogepan. So
Yeah, that's
the-
Kire is pretty in Japanese.
yeah. So like the
Kogepan.
whole bunch of the nice pans, and it tells two stories. One of them is when Kogepan scare them, and they
Right.
run away. And the other one is like he shared compassionate, so they get them to drink milk, and which they get drunk.
Right. Yeah. And
That's so good.
the story ends the same way in both
The
cases.
innocent way, yeah.
Yeah, because
I
the
love
store
that.
ends up closed due to unforeseen circumstances.
Yep. And
That
then
is really
yeah.
the thing that's interesting about that is like Kogepan is, you know, because he's bitter as he's been burned. So,
Yep.
I mean, I would say that's probably a metaphor for feeling like life has dealt you a terrible hand.
Yep. Yep,
You
yep,
know,
yep.
and you just feel like you're worthless or you're ugly.
Yep.
So that element of Kogepan's character, you know, informs everything that we know about him and everything that we see him do.
Yep.
But in episode 3, no matter whether he's like kind of taking out his anger a little bit on the kids,
Yep.
on the pretty puns by scaring them, or whether he's attempting to be compassionate,
Yep.
the result is the same. So
That's
it's kind of like, why do I even try? It's
Yep.
gonna turn out the same way either way, you know.
Yep.
So that element of like kind of almost, it's not despair, but it's kind of like I don't know,
I think
that
it's
like
fun.
you've given up. That kind of
Yeah.
runs underneath the whole show. Like Kogepan has kind of given up, but then
Yeah.
sometimes he'll like do the right thing or try his best, and that's always really, that kind of warms my heart a little bit.
Yeah.
That even though Kogepan he's going to live forever at this bakery, he'll never be sold. Sometimes he still tries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But because I worked in the bakery before, I know that, you know, like for those for the burnt bread, it's got thrown away immediately. You know, you don't stick it around. You know, get sold at all. Yeah, I love an episode with the strawberry pan,
Yeah, that's episode 8.
Ichigo pan,
Mhm.
and I love her characters. I love the way that she bouncing off with Kogepan, and
Yeah, she tells him off. You
Yep.
know, he's trying to,
belittle her.
Yeah, he's trying to make it out so that like it's not such a big deal that she's so beautiful and she's gonna be sold. And she's like, you know what? I don't I don't care for your negativity.
Yeah,
You know, I am beautiful, and I do my best to be beautiful, and that's that's who I am, and
yeah,
that's what I love being. You know, and Kogepan's like, oh, well, I never really thought about it that way. But
and
then she gets drunk.
and then she get wrong. But I love the punch that she said. She only here for like 3 months because of the sale of the promotions.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
kind of bringing in the mechanics of a bakery,
Yep. Yeah.
or the
Love
the
that.
the, the trends of a bakery, like into Kogepan. It
Yeah.
accounts for that. That's part of the mythos of Kogepan, is the workings of the shop where they
Yeah.
live. It's kind of the same in episode 3, where
Yeah.
the shop is closed due to unforeseen circumstances. In fact,
Yeah.
I think we see that sign multiple times throughout
Yeah.
these 10 episodes.
Yeah.
And it's usually because of
And
something that Kogepan has done.
yep. And like episode 9, like you said, a Kogepan who look up to Kogepan and try to be burned, to appear to be
Right.
burned. Oh, I love that episode.
Yeah.
And then he sneezes. How can a pan sneeze? How can a bread sneeze?
I don't know. Maybe maybe there's a little bit of ash in the air from a piece of bread being burned, and that tickles their bread nose, makes them sneeze.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
Yeah,
And then
episode 9 is a really interesting one because Kogepan, like Pretty Pan, wants to be like Kogepan,
yeah,
but Kogepan knows that no one should want to be like him.
yeah,
Like it's gonna be hard. It's not the sort of life that anyone should aspire to. So he's angry at he lectures Pretty Pan for losing sight of bread's true purpose, which is to be baked beautifully and sold to, at the counter.
yeah,
But so Kogepan is acting noble in that moment, kind of, and like reaffirming that what a piece of bread should want to be is beautiful.
yeah,
Even though he has that moment of nobility and of like righteousness almost, he still tries to sneak into the bag
yeah,
and go home with Pretty Pan. Like, even though he's just talked this big game about what bread should be, he's still selfishly wants to leave the bakery.
yeah. Oh my god.
Which is kind of an interesting look at how like we all have things that we believe about what's right,
Yeah,
even though what we really want is often counter to that. Like, we have rules that we follow in spite of our heart's desire, which is to get out of where we are, to get out of the bakery, to get out of whatever point we're at in our life, even if the rules say this is where you should be right now. Kogepan teaching us lessons about life with every episode.
oh nice. And we didn't really learn much about Shumipan, the really burned bread, except for like the backstory of he being struck, like inside
The oven.
the oven for 30 minutes, I think, or even longer.
What bread was that? What was its name?
Sumipan.
Sumipan?
Yep.
I definitely remember there being a character like that, but I didn't remember their name, or I can't even picture their appearance.
Yeah, really black. For the lack of work.
That must have been from one of the episodes where all the different types of bread
Yep,
showed up.
And he also has his best friend, Kuribupan.
Yes. It's good that he has a best friend to, just to keep him company so he doesn't like try to commit bread suicide. Because he might do that if he didn't have like a companion to vent his feelings to.
So instead, they just got drunk on milk.
Yeah, they just get drunk on milk and his friend. What's his friend's name? He's the one with the lumpy head. Is it Cream Pan?
Yeah, Kuribupan. Yeah.
Yeah. Cream Pan always says "ma ma," which is translated as like there
Yeah.
or well.
Yeah. I would say that it's too short. I would love to see more of these.
I don't know. I think it's an appropriate length. Like each episode just wants to showcase a little bit about Kogepan's general attitude and
I
have a little moral of the story buried somewhere in there, and then just get out. Like you
yeah.
don't need it to be 10 minutes or 13
No,
minutes.
no, no. I don't mean about the episode length. I mean about the number of episodes. I want to see more of these
Yeah.
scenarios of Kogepan.
I wonder how many you could really do
Yeah,
before it
true.
starts to feel stale,
Yeah, true, true. Yep.
or you start to feel burned out.
Good choice of word.
I do really like episode 10. I like the final episode a lot because it breaks the format of the show. It has way more backgrounds that are like completely illustrated. A lot of the
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds in the series are just white, and then whatever's in the foreground, like right where the characters are walking or whatever they're interacting with, only that portion of the background will be filled in.
Yep.
But in episode 10, that's the one with all the different seasons.
Yep.
And a lot of the backgrounds are like completely filled in, so you can get a good sense of whether it's spring or
Yep.
fall or whatever the season may be.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
and in winter, all the bread, all the breads, all the pans, they all have the same breath, like the same white color breath,
Yep.
and that makes them, they're all the same, even though they all have different appearances. They all
Yep.
breathe the same cold breath in the wintertime. Kind
Yep.
of like the what you learn when you're a little kid in school. Like even though all of us look different, we're all the same inside.
Yep.
The series has a little message like that at the end
Yep.
for any kids who are watching. Because I assume even though Kogepan is like a bitter old man who gets drunk on milk and stuff, he's still a little cartoon mascot, and I assume some kids probably watch this, and
Yep.
it's a nice little message for them.
And I noticed that like all the characters that written in the shows are really simple. So I think it's like mainly for kids, and like everything is this is like so appeal to kids.
Right. Yeah. It has some characters who are like very bitter and angry in it, or just kind of like,
In a charming way.
yeah, well, exactly. It's kids can appreciate it, even though Kogepan he's just an old bitter and drunk guy.
Yep.
Any adult watching this will immediately recognize Kogepan for what he is.
Yep.
But he still tries his best from time to time, and he runs away from the bakery or tries to, but then he always comes crawling back, or his escape attempt fails. He never really changes, but I think the show would say that that's okay. Like he doesn't need to change. He just needs to keep,
Being himself.
yeah, keep being himself and keep accepting people for who they are. Keep learning from them. Like when Ichigo Pan says to him, like, I don't appreciate what you're saying to me. I know who I am and I love who I am. Kogepan hears that, and I think he appreciates it on some level.
Yep.
And he recognizes that even though they're younger pawns and prettier pawns and less bitter and jaded pawns, like they're all bred in the end. They're all the same on the inside.
All right. I would say that wrap up our 2000 and 2002 visits.
Pretty much, yeah. We got these three shows. There are many others you could watch from this 3-year span,
Yeah.
but these are some of my favorites. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Mm,
I do like Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
I don't think I liked it as much on the rewatch.
mm,
Kogepan I really do like.
Yep.
I remember learning about Kogepan from the Cart Driver, Scamp's old blog.
Right.
And at this point, I don't even read I don't even read our blog. I don't read
Yeah.
any anime blogs anymore. But there are some series I can remember like learning about particular shows from particular anime blogs because I was really into
Yep.
that sort of thing back in the day. And Kogepan I remember learning about from Scamp.
Yep.
I've watched it twice now, and I think it's really neat. I think it's just really cute, and
Short
it's
and sweet.
got something to say as well.
Yeah.
It's fun. And then
Alrighty.
Boogiepop was Boogiepop. It was an education. I think I got an education from watching Boogiepop Phantom.
Education. Hey.
Yeah, I think I was educated about nonlinear storytelling and um, paying close attention and accepting the things that you don't quite get about it, unless the screen's too dark for you to even understand what's happening at all. It's too
I
much.
I really appreciate your screenshot you sent it to me because I couldn't if you couldn't point if you don't point I couldn't even say that there was the characters in the top right corner.
Right. So in that shot, I think the human character in the on the left hand side is, I can't remember if they're maybe Suema, and then the character in the foreground, you see Boogiepop's little what is that thing that wraps around its shoulders?
Scap.
Is that supposed to be a scarf?
Uh,
It like hovers around its shoulders, kind of.
oh right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, either Boogiepop or Boogiepop Phantom is in the foreground there, because it's a shot that's kind of looking down over onto the street. And
Yep.
then in the upper right-hand corner, that's the other Boogiepop, whether that's the original or Phantom.
Yep.
And you just can't understand what's happening in that scene. Like, you don't even know which Boogiepop is talking
Yep.
when they're talking, because you can't see their mouths or...
All right. Cool. So we will for this channel we'll be back. I think in a month time for a winter 2022 wrap up.
Yeah. Still got to
Yeah.
figure out which shows exactly,
Yep.
or what the fourth show will be. I think we have a good idea of which ones we want to talk about, but we got to figure out what number 4 will be.
Yep.
Ryman's Club or
Yeah.
something.
Maybe that one.
maybe.
Let's see. Yep.
I haven't even seen one episode of that. But yeah, we'll be back in a month on this channel. And then the week after that, it'll be another episode, I believe.
Yep. Let's see first impression for the next season, spring season.
Yeah, spring. It's time for spring to come along and save us
Yep.
from a pretty bleak winter.
Alrighty. Oh, we spent like 2 hours for this, so I think
Gotta
we did
hop
a pretty
off.
good job.
All right.
All right. See you soon, guys.
See you next time.